Welcome to the Bill Kelly Podcast, critical discussions in critical times. Here's your host, Bill Kelly.
And welcome. This is another edition of the Bill Kelly Podcast, critical discussions in these critical times. I'm your host, Bill Kelly. Drawing ever closer to our Canadian election here, and almost the good, the bad, and the ugly of what's going on here with information, because I talked about this. I've been in the media for many, many years, and I've seen how media and information and disinformation can have an impact on elections and on people's opinions of politicians and on everyday issues. And never have we had more information coming at us than I guess we do these days. But the other side of that coin is never have we had more disinformation coming at us. And the challenge that we have is, how do you differentiate between the two? Because it's not easy. It's the people that are doing this, the preparers of the misinformation, they're good at what they do. And they've been effective in other countries and maybe even in this one in trying to sway public opinion in one way or the other. We already know, for instance, as we head into this election, which is drawing to a close now, CSIS and other agencies, of course, we're still part of the Five Eyes, although I don't know what kind of regard we're in these days. But anyway, we're still getting information from our allies about that. And they've told us that they have verifiable proof that the Russians and the Indian government are trying desperately to spread misinformation about this election. And we can imagine just where that's going. The Chinese government, we're told as well, is in on this. I don't know if they're colluding here, but they're certainly doing what they can to try to influence who we vote for and who we like and who we don't like. The Indian thing is something that I find rather fascinating because they already told us a couple of years ago that the Indian government was involved in the conservative leadership race, which was eventually won by Pierre Poilievre. And we don't know all the details on that, but it was between Jean Charest and Pierre Poilievre, and I can't see the Indian government supporting Charest, but so it seems as if Mr. Poilievre certainly benefited from that. Are they doing the same sort of thing here? Might be. I don't know. Of course, Poilievre wouldn't know because he won't get a security clearance, but he might know who's writing the checks for him for his campaign these days. That's information we'd certainly like to know, and I think we deserve to know at some point. But on and on it goes about that sort of thing. I mean, I saw something on, I think it was on Facebook just a couple of days ago, and it was a post by somebody, but it basically said that Carney is going to start taxing equity on homes as a way to raise revenue. That's not in his platform. He's never talked about that. Nobody in the Liberal Party has talked about that, but it was posted with the CBC logo on the story, which made it look as if it's the CBC that's reporting it. Well, it wasn't the CBC. It's a falsehood. It's a created misinformation piece that some people are simply going to read and say, well, there he goes again. Just as if the same sort of thing we've happened after the Liberals released their budget plan. And the day he got sworn in as Prime Minister, before this election was even called, Poilievre and the Conservatives were saying, yeah, okay, he scrapped the carbon tax for people. He's going to put it back in as soon as he gets elected again. He's never said that. But they're saying that. They want to spread this disrespect and this anger, so they make stuff up. And if you hate liberals, and boy, there's a lot of people that hate liberals, you're going to believe it. You're going to believe anything they say about them, and say that to justify that hate. And that kind of goes back to what we've talked about, not the use, but the abuse of social media. Too many of us are guilty of this. We go to sites and we read stories of things that are going to validate how we already feel. We're not there to get information. We're not there to try to educate ourselves. We're simply there to say, see that story? I was right all along. Those people are idiots. And that's not doing a whole lot to try to bring people together. But that's one of the realities that we're going to have to face. And that's what happens when we start looking at policies and analyzing who's doing what and who's promoting what and who's promising what. One of the other things that I hear on a pretty consistent basis since we started talking about policies and the direction in which they're going is about who's in charge and who's making the decisions. One of the silly stories, mind you, there are other adjectives I could use there, that surfaced over the last little while is that after the Liberals released their platform, their costed platform about a week or so ago now, Poilievre and some of the Conservatives were saying, well, Justin Trudeau's the one that really wrote that. What a load of crap. Poilievre has this obsession with Justin Trudeau. He so wanted to run against Trudeau in this election because he figured, I'm going to knock that guy's socks off. We're going to win a huge majority. We'll all live happily ever after. Trudeau drops out of the race. And Poilievre is basically left holding the bag. And he still mentions Trudeau, suggesting that Trudeau has got his hands all over this. There's no validation for that at all. But again, he wants to stoke that hate that people have for Justin Trudeau. Now, I'll get it. People who have known me and my career over the years, I'm not a Justin Trudeau fan, never was. A time and place, he got elected leader and won a huge majority in 2015, but he's made a lot of bad policy decisions, I think, and he wasn't a very good patron and a steward of the Canadian economy, and we're in a mess because of that. But that's my thought on Trudeau. But okay, there's enough there to start talking about the shortcomings of Justin Trudeau without making crap up. And that's what the Conservatives are doing these days. And it's all to feed that hatred. And now, of course, some Conservatives are still fascinated and obsessed with Trudeau. Others are moving on. And all that hatred is now being directed at Mark Carney. I mean, you've seen the F. Carney flags all of a sudden. The guy was prime minister for about a week and a half, but all of a sudden it's F. Carney, just because he's a liberal. And it's stupid. And, they're quoting passages from his book. And I'm getting notes from people saying, well, you should read the book. Well, I did. Okay. It's right here behind me. And it's called Values. It's a few years old, by the way. It was not written when he was having any political ambitions. And they're saying, well, he's really a lefty. He's an NDPer at heart. Again, it's a load of crap. What he does talk about in the book is laid out a plan for fiscal sustainability, something he talked about while he was the Bank of Canada governor and the Bank of England governor. But what he mentions in the book, and I think he's referenced this a few times during this campaign too, is when we're making decisions about policy, about the direction in which we're going, about how we're going to try to be a catalyst for economic growth, you've got to consider the human element of this. In other words, this is not just a bookkeeping exercise. It's not just profit and loss, and there's balancing this and balancing that. There's a human cost. What politicians will do is going to have an impact on you and me, on our lives, our families, and our futures, where we're going to live, if we can afford a house, things of those nature, and the environment in which we live. It's all well and good for the government to go back and say, well, we've balanced the budget. Aren't we just fabulous? You can't breathe the air because we got rid of all our environmental concerns. There's healthcare has gone to hell in a handcart, because we've eliminated this plan. Seniors have to pay for their drugs now. Is that really the right approach? Some people are going to say yes, because it is just a balance sheet exercise for them. But Carney is suggesting you've got to consider human beings. And I like that idea. And if you don't give a damn how these policies impact people, well, I got a problem with you too. And I think the Canadian people would have problems with people in charge that are going to have that kind of a mindset. I'm not saying Carney's book is perfect. I'm not saying everything he suggested or everything he's promoting is perfect. There are some things that if he wins this election, he's going to propose, and we'll have a debate about that. And you'll agree or disagree with an awful lot of that stuff. I will agree or disagree with some of the policies that he said. But that's what democracy is. Because we've seen how it can go off the rails in Hungary with Orban, with Stephen Harper's buddies, certainly with Trump, and certainly with so many other places that are going on these days. But I got to tell you, as somebody who's lived, thankfully, in a democratic country like Canada, I would rather disagree with my government than fear my government. And I think that's the distinction that we have to make these days. We are going to have disagreements. We may think, no, that's not a very good policy. We'll talk about it and debate it back and forth, and we can live with that. That's what the democratic process is all about. But authoritarian rule, where people don't give a damn, as long as that little cloister of people close to them are the ones who benefit, is not good for the country. It's not good for you and me as citizens of the country. You've got a guy in the White House right now who only seems to give a damn about the billionaires that stroke his ego all the time. And thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of Americans are going to suffer. As a matter of fact, even the ones who said, they were Trumpers all along, farmers, so many other people, realize, and I'm hearing this time and time again on social media, God, I didn't think he was going to do that. I didn't think it was going to impact me. You want somebody who's going to have empathy. Now, Polyev says empathy is wokeism. No, it's not. It's caring for human beings. As Jane Fonda mentioned, remember, in a recent speech when she won an award, wokeism it's giving a damn about other people in your community. And when did that become not in fashion? I don't know the specific date, but I certainly know there are people who have turned their backs on that right now, that we do have to care about others. And anybody who still is of this mindset that, well, you can't have it both ways. If you're going to be empathetic and you're going to look after people's health care and you're going to look after the environment in which we live, then you just can't have an efficient government. That's crap. It can be done, and it should be done. It takes a little extra work, and it takes something that maybe a lot of politicians don't want to do, and that's think. They simply want to have hard and fast answers and say, well, this formula should make this work. Not always the case. And the brilliant leaders that we've had, not just in this country, but in other parts of the world, have had to think outside the box. After World War II, everybody was in an economic mess. I mean, aside, obviously, because we had to switch. We're not making guns and cannons and bombs anymore. We've got to switch things around. And it was somebody like the vision of Franklin Delano Roosevelt that started his own plan for Reconstruction in the United States. And it worked. And we've had people that have had that vision and that foresight. And we've had others, by the way, that will simply fill the air with BS and try to get us to believe it. But the bottom line here, and I learned this as a young person, something my parents taught me a long, long time ago that have never left me, is hard work. Nothing comes easy. If it looks so easy, it's probably not true. And we've seen this happen politically because politicians love to promote stuff that, all we have to do is this and this. Sounds easy, right? It's not. There's going to be a lot of blood, sweat, and tears every time, no matter what the government is, to try to make things work. And we can't be suckers. We can't fall for the crap that some of these people are purporting. Carney talks about it in the book, as a matter of fact. When he got hired, and he was hired, by the way, the Conservative government over there, David Cameron's government, actually convinced him to take the job. And not too long after that, the Brexit referendum happened. He didn't cause it, by the way. It was caused by people falling for the crap from people like Neil Farage and others that put this forward and said, look, if we go out of the European Union, the money will flow back in. We're all going to be rich. We won't know what to do with all the extra gut. And the day after, and we talked about this on the radio show at the time, the day after the referendum, when all of a sudden, Cameron had to resign because he thought Britain's made the wrong choice, and they did, to get out of Brexit. Farage and these other people that were spouting all these great numbers said, yeah, well, we made all those numbers up. We're just lying. And they're still suffering the consequences of that because they got suckered. We can't allow that to happen. We can't get suckered. We, as people of this country, as citizens of this country, we have to do our homework too. And we damn well better know exactly who we're bringing and putting into office and what they're going to do. All right? Don't be fooled by the rhetoric. And I've said this 1,000 times, and I'm going to say it 1,000 more times because it's important, and I think it's very germane to what we're doing. Don't just listen to what they say. Watch what they do. Because you and I are the ones that are going to be impacted by it. That's it for this edition of the podcast. Thanks so much for being with us. You can catch us on Substack, of course, Spotify, Apple, certainly on YouTube. And by the way, when you're on YouTube, hit that notification bell, too. A lot of people on Blue Sky jumping in. Thank you so much for this. Keep the feedback coming, and let's get involved, and let's think just a little bit. All right? We need to do that. We have that responsibility as well. Thanks especially to Madeline Kelly for the great work in producing the podcast for today. I'm Bill Kelly. Until next time, stay in touch and stay informed.
Bill Kelly Podcast brought to you by Wizen's Law, personal injury lawyers. Listen, you didn't choose to get injured, but you can choose the right lawyer. Wizen's Law, 905-522-1102 or wizenslaw.com.